Hi, this is Ed, and good morning from me in San Diego. This view is a picture that I took. It's in the tourist convention center area, and those tall buildings are facing the ocean, the San Diego Harbor. Actually, they're looking at the Coronado Bridge over into Coronado and beyond out to the ocean. Beautiful area. Uh, I don't live in any of those buildings. I live down the street behind that tall white building in the background. It's also a nice place, but it's low level. It's on a city park. It's very nice. Anyway, our guest today is Ron Cooper. As you know, Ron Cooper, the cooperculture.com, um, is a co-host with me on a year-long, that 52 weeks of shows on a variety of topics. Today's topic, and today is December 11, 2025, is not political, it is economic. But today, politics is local and geo. So we're going to talk about affordability in the context of what is and what is not. I have to read this. We'll include spending and investing disciplines and how we pass on these values to those within our circles of influence. Excuse me. What does that mean? Employees, family, friends? Ron asks the question, are we raising kids or otherwise influencing others to have an entitlement attitude? Well, you certainly have to be careful with that. We'll be right back with Ron Cooper and what will be, I'm sure, an interesting conversation. It will be streamed, global free access, 24/7 through the Global Business News Media Network. So a lot of people will see this. Stand by. Ron is just entering. We're really happy to have him here early. Stand by. Ron will be right here. Hello, Ron. Welcome, Ron.
Yep. Good morning, Ed. How you doing, buddy?
Good,
And
good.
yeah, hey, there we are. Now we're on
All right.
screen.
Good morning.
Hey, got the standard picture in the background, and hey, it's all
Yeah,
good.
yeah. This is down the street, across from the convention center, the tourist area. The hotels are the Hyatt, the Hilton, the Marriott are all right around there. And I was just saying to the audience in a warm up, uh, see that tall white building in the background? That's
Yes.
not where I live, but I live across the street from that
Okay.
in a low rise complex that is a city block long and it's bordering a city park. And so that's obviously a nice area just across from Seaport Village. And I
All
thought
right. Great.
I'd show
Yeah.
that because we're going to be talking about affordability and not tongue in cheek.
Affordability, low rise, not to be construed as low rent.
Well, welcome. We are being recorded right now. Good morning.
Oh, okay. Oh, great, Ed. Yes.
So Christmas is coming,
Christmas
and
is coming, and
we hope for
uh,
peace and compatibility.
yes, and it's a time where, we hopefully can gather with family and so forth. And it's from our perspective, and I know this varies from person to person, we are celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. And it is a matter of some people tend to slow down at this time of year for various reasons, but I would certainly hope that we can reflect on And if we do slow, well, irrespective of whether we slow down, speed up, or whatever, that we take the time to just acknowledge and choose to get along well with each other. And I know that's a very contrary statement in some people, some organizations, but Ed, that's a lot of where I'm coming from. And I think affordability can relate to that topic.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. I think you know that uh, or something about my early background in business
Yep.
in the entertainment industry, meaning I worked for a very large real estate company that owned a lot of movie theaters. And I was just a kid. I was 27, 28. And they hired me because uh, I loved movies. And in college, I was the editor of the paper for 3 years. Started up and ran the radio station. And so I was out there doing things a long time ago. And they wanted my opinion of what movies were about because the older ownership, they're like our age now, but they were really old at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so movies like Woodstock and Love Story and things like that came along, and they didn't know what to do with it. Uh, my job was to write reviews, look at in the screening room in the office. We brought in lunch, watched movies, and then afterwards I wrote a report and a recommendation as to the marketability and who would buy tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, popcorn and candy, which is where the real profit is. And uh, so these guys very briefly had just a bunch of real estate for years, which means city blocks or in neighborhoods, the local movie theater. And they also had land in the countryside, and they put drive-in movie theaters up. And one of the more interesting things to me was the um, cinemas rather than movie theaters, the cinemas located adjacent to college campuses because that was the generation. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I think of Woodstock and other movies. So they had real quick here. They had really smart guys. Uh, they had money, and they bought or set up movie theaters with the latest sound equipment and all that at the time, adjacent to the campuses of the Ivy League colleges uh, and some Midwest, like Ohio State, Michigan State, some places, University of Penn State, not just Ivy League, but everywhere. And so a movie like Woodstock won't go over where Sound of Music just played. Totally
Mm-hmm.
different audience. And so I said, well, in the report, I said, you got to hire cleaners because the theaters will be a mess. And but you could run it at midnight as well as earlier in the evenings on these college campuses, and you'll make a ton of money because that's exactly what they're going to want to see, and maybe more than once. And so they moved quickly, and being the smart guys that they were, they smart business guys, they just moved in, made deals with the film companies, the film distributors, uh, and the film companies were dying trying to figure out what to do with Woodstock. So it's all about the eye of the beholder, right? Which is what we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes. And at that time, I said, you got to buy it low before the word gets out about how strong it will be in this particular audience, which is millions of people, kids, and do it quick and book it in quick before the college uh, student year ends in June. So get it in now. And this was like the summer before. So, and college campuses spring into life in late August through June or May. And they did that. They moved on it real quick. They made millions of dollars doing that. And I got a reward for sure. But what's affordable? What are we talking about from your perspective in today?
Well, Ed, what I gleaned from what you said are several things. The cinema owners needed a market study. And they're thinking, okay, well, who, how, where? Well, Ed is a good source for that. And so Ed has been around. He has mixed with society. He knows what the trends are. He knows what these things are. And so they relied on you. And so as entrepreneurs, we need to make a determination what is a good return on our investment. And these entrepreneurs with whom you were working seem to think that, okay, yep, Ed, everything you're saying makes sense. Let's put cinemas at these places. Obviously, we've got to appeal to the audience that's there and have the right showings and so forth. And it seems all of that worked out, but that was with a long-term view. We're not here for just the weekend, so to speak. We're here for the longer view, the cinema and so forth. I mean, it's this is going to be a fairly substantial investment. Am I thinking correctly? That's basically what the background was.
Couple of million. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, hey, the thinking is long term. Is there going to be a return on the investment? And then, will the cinemas be affordable for the college student? I mean, if we have a price of $30 a head per movie, no, probably not affordable.
No,
And
it's not even $10 at that
okay,
time.
there you go. And so we've got to price it to where it's affordable. And then how many people can we expect to be there? And yes, the concession stands, that's where the majority of the, by percentage at least, that's where the revenue is coming in. But one person buys maybe whatever size can of popcorn and so forth. Well, we've got to have a bunch of those to be able to turn a profit and so forth. But all that goes into the entrepreneurial thinking, and everything has to be affordable. And the marketplace would seem, from my perspective, to be if you make the cost of the ticket affordable, then let's just pick a price of $10. Once I'm in the theater, I might be willing to pay $15 for a bucket of popcorn.
So at that
Now,
time, I want to tell you what the price was. It was $4 or $5 for
okay,
entry, and most of the people who went to like Woodstock, we'll just use that for an example, as opposed to Sound of Music kind of thing.
sure. Mhm.
Um, they bought a Coke or a Pepsi or whatever, and in a big cup, yeah, and then they bought an equal size big bag of popcorn. And so they spent more for the stuff than for the entrance.
Yep.
And
And that's
the way that business worked and still works to this day the same way. The film company, as I say, Warner Brothers, Paramount, they sell or rent or lease the right to display the movie for a period of time in a certain location at a percentage of the gross. Sometimes they get a flat fee up front plus a percentage. But the theater owners don't share one penny of the concession revenues. So when you get a mega hit movie, the attendees are going to spend more on the concessions than on the entry.
yes.
So that's the name of the game.
And I will tell you my thought is, and this what I'm about to say is not characteristic of everyone, But there are some who would say that, yes, I'm willing to pay the price of the ticket fee and price the popcorn because quite honestly, I'm near term thinking that this movie, this time, I need, well, let's just say I'm stressed out, whatever, but I need some entertainment now. Now, how many times a month, a week can you continue doing what you just did? How many theater tickets can you buy? How many bags of or buckets of popcorn can you buy and so forth? Well, I'm good for this week, but are you thinking out 12, 24 months in advance and so forth? Yeah, there's some people, and I'm about trying to couch everything I'm saying, Ed, in the context of affordability. But there are some people who say, well, I spent it all today. And well, I wish I could do something in the future, but well, no, that's not affordable because I don't have the resources, I don't have the money to do that. I don't have the capital because, well, why not? Well, yeah, I chose to go to the movies 2 days a week or whatever it may be. And I guess I spent all the money then because I wasn't thinking about the future. But Ed, my perception, and some people may think I'm very biased or whatever, but affordability, that there's some things we have no control over as far as affordability, prices, and so forth. And so we live a life investing. And if we're thinking ahead and in the future, we're thinking that, well, I have to be in the positive. In other words, I cannot continue in deficit spending and in the long term. I have to be in the positive mode with my investing, my thinking, and so forth. And in the context of affordability, a very familiar topic, the cost of eggs, as an example. The bird flu was out for a while and supply and demand. I remember the price of eggs being $6, maybe even $10 a dozen, something like that. And Marty and I decided that, yeah, even though we can afford to pay whatever the price was per dozen, I'm not going to do that. That's way above what I want to pay, but I had the choice that I could if I wanted to, but I did not want to pay. Let's just pick a number, $10 a dozen for eggs. I'm going to wait until the supply, demand, and so forth subsides. And so we can now afford the price of eggs, but some people would say, and now I'm going to turn it to the state of California. We have heard your governor say, and if I'm saying anything that's incorrect, Ed, certainly correct me. But we have heard your governor say we're going to provide health care to everyone who is in the state of California. Doesn't matter if you're here as a resident, legally, illegally, doesn't matter. We're going to provide health care for you, which I think, boy, that's a very benevolent effort. But what is the source of that money? Now, some people may say that, yeah, I do want to be benevolent, but maybe that makes something unaffordable because someone's having to pay someone has to source that money. But Ed, I'm getting into a topic now that might be very controversial to you or anybody in this audience, but that's some of what I'm thinking in the context of affordability.
So uh, I I welcome the dialogue, and I think the audience will keep tuning in here because it's stimulating. And Governor Newsom's really a smart dude about media, and of course President Trump is also different ends of the scale. So
Yep.
and so it's sort of developing into like a sumo wrestling match between these two guys, and I think it's going to get even more with more clarity in the next couple of years. But we'll see what happens. California has literally millions of people who are not in the middle class, not even in the middle class. And they have to be taken care of because if they get sick, then disease will spread to everybody else. So it's actually a smart move. Funding it is another story. Now, right now, and for the past few years, every gallon of gas that you pay for here in California, the state adds on $1. And that money is invested. And there's some really smart dudes who are managing that investment, and they're making a lot of money from the reinvestment of that dollar a gallon. You go across the border, which is 180 miles east of here into Arizona, immediately it's $1 less a gallon. Okay. And if you buy it at Costco, which they buy so much because they sell a lot, it's like almost another $1 less. So, like, we're going to take a road trip to Arizona, not to buy gas because we're going to use it up getting there. But what will cost $4 here down the street at Costco from where I live is going to be like 280, which is more of the national average now. I would think a gallon of gas in Eastern Maryland is probably between $3 and $4. And then you add another $1 onto that if you're in California. So, and they use that
Actually,
money.
well, our gas prices here are probably nominally 280 or so.
Well, that is amazing.
Yes.
Good. That is, I mean, I fill up and it's like $50. He says, "What? Jesus, crazy." And so people live here. I mean, some people have left because they can't afford to buy a home. And yet, if they go to Oklahoma or Northwest Arkansas, which is near where the Waltons have invested a tremendous amount of money to build up that countryside there into affordable living, that's what's happening. Like the hamburger joint here in California, In and Out,
Mm-hmm.
they are not leaving California. And Joanne and I go to an In and Out once a week at least. So, but they're setting up a second headquarters, which will eclipse the California headquarters eventually outside of Nashville. They're relocating people. They're going to be hiring lots of people because cost of living. And that's right on, spot on of what affordability actually means today.
And you made a statement earlier on, Ed, that that's not you, but California has a lot of a lot of people who are not middle class. I interpret that as meaning they're below middle class, probably not the upper class. No?
No, I just want to make sure that my words are clear enough. So thank you for bringing that up. Let me just say again, lower than middle class.
Okay. And so that's what I was assuming you were
Yeah,
saying, that
thank
they're
you.
lower than middle class, and that's just an economic statement, nothing derogatory about it. But there are those who are in California, and I don't know whether predominantly in various areas, who cannot afford the let's say the luxuries of life, and so um, certainly it's a very benevolent effort to take care of the people who cannot. And Ed, my thought, just as a very general thought, no specific person in mind, are they in the lower than middle class, or why are they in the lower than middle class? Do they have a dependent attitude, mindset, or could they get a higher paying job if they had other skills and so forth? And so I have what seems to be a bit of a mindset that there are some people who choose to remain lower class and dependent on some other people for affordability. They know how to use the term suck off other people, and they're just going to stay right where they are because they know how to tap into other people's resources to make things affordable for them. And Ed, I welcome any assessment of what I just said. And that's just a thought of some. Now, that's not everybody, but just some.
So I'm a journalist, so it's like reporting what is, it's not opinion. So the people that I'm referring to are not educated. They're trainable to do jobs that need to get done. Someone has to do them, and that they'll get a wage. Um, the the fast food joints that are meeting the $20 an hour or even $15 an hour threshold, uh, they're shutting down units because they are not making money in those particular locations. But they're certainly increasing in other areas, increasing scope and size and deliverables. So the people who fall into that category are there's people who were in that category, but they work themselves up either through community sourced help or the foundation, the wealthy people who put money under a tax shelter into some kind of foundation stuff, and then it goes out to these this population that I'm referring to. They don't own homes. They're renting. They're living somewhere, and these are not people on the street. That's a whole other category who are mentally incapable of
Mhm.
taking care of themselves. We see it down the street here, not in this particular neighborhood, but 10 blocks east of here. Uh, and in LA, it's huge. In Chicago, it's huge. And probably wherever the president wants to send troops, that's probably huge in those areas. It's a problem. And uh, so I don't know what to do with those people. And I guess the governor doesn't know what to do with them either. So, and there's a whole group around the governor that want to take care at a minimum to keep these people healthy. Because if they get sick, then it will be a worse than the COVID in terms of impact on society as a whole. You have to keep them healthy or else they're going to spread disease. And that'll cause even more uh, interracial violence and issues that nobody wants. So it's a cost, but it's a lesser cost than by ignoring it.
And Ed, I'll interject here that for your and your listeners, viewers' sake, I am aware there are those that have mental challenges and they need help. They're not capable of, or let's say that they need outside assistance. I want to be available to provide that. There are those who are lesser educated, and so those people who are lesser educated, but not mentally ill type thing, or they have the ability to go beyond where they are, I do understand. There are some who were raised in an environment that we just didn't, couldn't, and so forth. But I would like to progress. They would say something to the effect, I would like to progress to something where I am not right now. I would certainly want to be available to help those people define some life goals. And quite honestly, we're working with a 24-year-old right now who's in that category. We want to help him define his life goals. And I want to put numbers behind that. Meaning, if you, by let's say, owning your own home, you want to be independent, own a car, and so forth, I can help you put the numbers together that to do that, it's going to cost you. And to get to that point, you're going to have to, and that's we can pretty well put a strategic plan together that to get to where you want to be, it's going to take this level of effort. It's going to take this mental discipline and so forth to get there. And if you are willing to exercise the discipline to get there, I will do everything I can to help inspire you to get there. And so, Ed, there's some people who want to go beyond where they are and they're willing to do that. And I certainly want to be available to be a catalyst to help them get there. On the contrary, yes, there's some people who cannot get there because of some kind of challenges, and I do want to be available to help them, and they're going to need financial assistance. I certainly understand that, and I want to be available to help that. But I do also want to say that as you want to get to wherever you want to be, that everything has to be within the context of compliance with local, state, and federal statutes. That's where I am.
Yeah. So this guy who won in mayor, the mayor elect in New York,
Mm-hmm.
it was really interesting to see the president and him in the Oval Office. Uh, I don't. I'm interested, but I don't like that guy's policies and thinking or his associations, as far as I know, with people who are anti-Semitic and openly and viciously, because that is really hurtful to me and to others who don't have my background. They just don't want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
I'm,
there's some clashes coming,
yep.
unfortunately. And I just hope and pray, actually, that that doesn't happen.
Well, and he was elected for various reasons, and it's going to be very interesting to see
Yeah, that
if
was a protest vote.
yeah, it was a protest vote,
Yeah.
but it's going to be very interesting to see how much of what he represented he'll be able to implement free with
And
this.
then what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, Ed. And there's some people who the word free. I don't have to pay for bus transportation. I don't have to pay for let's say, public transportation and so forth. Well, there is a cost to that, so someone has to pay it. And so, are people willing to be in and support that socialist regime to where we're going to socialize things? And yes, we do want to make it free for you and others, you meaning very generically you. And so I'm very interested in seeing if he is able to bring to fruition what he campaigned on, and is he going to bring it about? Or are people going to make excuses for, well, it couldn't happen, but that's still okay? And I'm very interested in seeing just how things work out, because I think you and I, Ed, know that if you want to make things affordable, it is a matter of choices, but it's a matter of discipline, that you must live within a financially responsible regime within your personal family and so forth. And over time, you will be able to have choices of what it is you want to do to where you're not dependent on other people. That's a lot of where Marty and I are.
So this again, this show is it's a business show, but I'd like to say something that I think you might agree with, and if not, just say it anyway. The Ten Commandments.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they ought to be out there on billboards on the streets,
I'm right there with you.
and in English that can be read and easily understood without fancy language.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and because it's common sense almost, and just, but if you're not trained or not educated to know that those things are all about common sense, uh, it's bewildering why that hasn't happened. I'm not in favor of state religion or forced religion, but as a counterweight to all the nonsense and garbage that's out there and disinformation. Uh, that's what Turning Point ought to do.
Well, and I'm in agreement with you, Ed. And one of the problems we run into is that, well, if you call them Ten Commandments as opposed to core life values, well, the Ten Commandments came from the Bible. That's religion. That. Nope, I'm going to just shove you aside right there. And so, but how about if we call them core life values? That, no, we're not going to steal from each other. And I'm not going to come after you, Ed, with a knife, a gun, and so forth. That would be contrary to a life value. You and I have talked about it on this show before. I will not denigrate you, Ed. I will not consciously denigrate you. If I say something that does denigrate you, it said, well, I want to apologize to you, Ed. I did not even, it was not a conscious thought that I did. But if I respect you enough, and that's a core value, that let's just call it those core life values, golly, can we agree on some fundamentals that, yes, we agree on those very basic core values, and we may or may not discuss the origin of those. Am I the origin of some life value, or is it someplace else? And I know we can get into various arguments, or let's say conversations about that. But I'm a believer in core life values that I value you as a person. And you and I may or may not agree. I think we do largely agree. But even if we totally disagree on something, I respect you as a person. And I can learn from you, even though we may disagree on some topic, that I can learn from you always. Even through our disagreements, because I'm very interested in you as a person. I respect you, and I'm interested in learning from your perspective. But that's a lot of who I am, Ed. And it's unfortunate that at various levels we choose to denigrate and just name call and so forth, and that results in divisions, divisiveness. And I'm not interested in divisiveness. I would like to be a catalyst to bring us together, even though we may vehemently disagree on whatever.
So we have to end this in around 10 minutes or so. I've got another program on Latin America and the Caribbean
Mm-hmm.
at the top of the hour. Um, and you're certainly welcome to join that. It's that specific topic. Uh, I believe that there ought to be a revival of the what President Roosevelt did, the four truths or something, the four something, and they became American values.
Yes.
And American values is the Ten Commandments, or whatever we're going to call them.
Mm-hmm.
And also tied in with that, I'd like to see a Peace Corps revived, but let's call it something else.
Mm-hmm.
And to help people who are less fortunate or less developed. And that and aim at anyone could do it, but it's aimed at younger people. And they would get compensated. They get a wage for time spent and things reported, tabulated, done. If it's going to be aimed at young people today, all of those young people have been trained on the computer,
Mm-hmm.
on a mobile. So that's very easy for them to identify what they have been doing, tabulate it, and then send it to somebody in charge. And that's where the money, the wage for doing that community oriented work, proof, accomplishment, delivered, and they get paid. And that would teach younger people in particular about the American system. There's nothing wrong with working and there's nothing wrong with getting paid, but you earn it. It's not a handout.
I'm right there with you. And going back to your opening premise in the context of time, um, the entrepreneurs, the cinema the movie theater executives and entrepreneurs and so forth? Is there something out there that can be long-term beneficial? And Ed, you and I have talked about it before. As our thoughts are on the positive, that is, what can we do to work together toward the longer-term positive? As we are mentally mindset oriented to what is positive, we're going to come about those things that are. We'll think through. And just as you're saying, a P score or something of a, call it something different, as we can think toward the positive, that will benefit long term. And I'm a long term thinker, not just near term, but as we are long term thinkers and we're thinking positive, yes, I guarantee we will come about something that is workable, doable, and it's going to have a long term benefit. I'm not naive, so naive to think that it's going to be universally appealable to everybody, but we're after those segments of those who agree on core values. But yes, that's a lot of where I am. And I totally agree with you, Ed.
So one of the notes that you sent me during the week was we raising kids or otherwise influencing others to have an entitlement attitude. And that's
Yep.
what got me thinking about, okay, what's the antidote to that? And especially this guy, this politician in New York City, who, by the way, lives in a $1 million condo, and he's talking about poor people. This just
Yeah, and Ed, I'll just
I
say
mean,
very
it's just
brief.
not honest. It's
Yep.
not authentic.
Okay.
It's a
He's
fakery.
he's living in a $1 million condo. He may have inherited that. I don't know, but I'm just going to suppose he developed the ability to live in a $1 million condo over time. The entitlement attitude is that well, I've been raised in the $1 million condo. I deserve that in maybe in my young 20s, late teen ages, and so forth, because I want to be independent of my parents and so forth, and I deserve to continue living in the $1 million condo. Well, we didn't start out that way, but the entitlement attitude would say, well, I'm entitled to continue living just the way I've been living. And many of us would say, yep, you can be entitled to that, but you start at the bottom of the ladder, to use that proverbial attitude, and you can work your way up. But you're not entitled to start in the multi-million dollar condo. But that to me, Ed, is the difference between, yes, I know my parents, my wherever I'm living, they didn't start out that way. They climbed to that because of the disciplined financial attitude they have, and that's a lot of what I'm about.
Thank you, Ron Cooper. The Cooper culture, man, that's it in lights.
And that is what it is. And Ed, as just very briefly, I'll close out by saying that I am available at Ron, R-O-N, at thecooperculture.com. Our website, you can learn all about me from there, but I look forward to collaborating with others that as we may align with our core values, let's collaborate and determine how we can benefit others.
Amen. So we'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you, Ed. Good to be with you, brother.
Thank
Talk to you
you.
soon.
Bye bye. Okay, this is Ed signing off in San Diego. And thanks again, Ron Cooper, thecooperculture.com. Wonderful.
Great.
Ciao.